It's October 10th here in Seoul, and I'm Kim Dami. We begin with these stories making the headlines at this hour, starting with the latest on the Israel-Hamas war. The death toll from the conflict has now risen to 1,800 as Israel pummels the Gaza Strip with airstrikes. 192 South Korean nationals have made it back home safely from Israel this morning. And calling Hamas attacks on Israel sheer evil, U.S. President Joe Biden reaffirmed his country's commitment to supporting and aiding Israel. Yemeni rebels warned they'll support Hamas if Washington intervenes in the conflict. And here in South Korea, free flu vaccinations for senior citizens begin today for those aged 75 and up. Health authorities are encouraging people to get both flu and COVID-19 vaccines, which will start on the 19th. The conflict between the Israeli Defense Forces and Palestinian militant group Hamas is intensifying, with the total death toll now soaring to 1,900. Our An Sung-jin starts off this morning.
The death toll in the conflict between Israel and militant group Hamas continues to climb, passing 1,900, with more than 1,000 people killed in Israel, according to the Israel Defense Forces. The Palestinian Ministry of Health stated that at least 900 people were killed in Gaza, including more than 400 children and women. Reports say that a total of 7,000 people have been injured on both sides. Israeli authorities also announced that 2 top officials in politics and economics were also among the dead. The figure jumped as Israel began to pound Gaza with airstrikes of retaliation for a surprise attack on Israel by Hamas on Saturday. And with Israel's leaders continuing to fight on, the death toll is almost certain to rise.
Gaza won't return to what it was before. We will eliminate everything. If it doesn't take one day, it'll take a week, it'll take weeks, or even months. We'll reach all places.
The number of hostages held in Gaza is estimated to be at least 150, including 50 Israeli soldiers.
Israel is committed to the security of its citizens, to their safety and well-being. I would like to emphasize the full responsibility rests on the barbaric murderers of Hamas and Islamic Jihad. And therefore, as to the well-being of those abducted and kidnapped, it should be made clear, not a hair on their heads should be harmed. They should be unconditionally released and returned home.
Meanwhile, the Palestinian Foreign Ministry says that the Israeli military used prohibited white phosphorus munitions, while Hezbollah and Hamas have claimed that they launched attacks from Lebanon into Israeli territory, which landed in open areas or were successfully defended. The death toll in the conflict has reached the highest number in a single year since 2014. An Sung-jin, Arirang News.
And U.S. President Joe Biden has reaffirmed Washington's support for Israel. However, Iraqi and Yemeni armed groups aligned with Iran have threatened to target U.S. interests with missiles and drones if the U.S. steps in to aid Israel. Lee Seung-jae has more.
U.S. President Joe Biden on Tuesday denounced Hamas' attack as an act of terrorism, reaffirming Washington's full support of Israel in their ongoing armed conflict with the militant group.
So in this moment, we must be crystal clear. We stand with Israel. We stand with Israel. And we will make sure Israel has what it needs to take care of its citizens, defend itself, and respond to this attack. There's no justification for terrorism. There's no excuse.
The remarks come after Biden spoke with Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu for the 3rd time in 4 days, telling the Israeli leader that the U.S. response would be swift, decisive, and overwhelming if it had been attacked in the same way, but noted that democracies must also uphold the rule of law in wartime. Biden also said that he would call on Congress to take urgent action to support Israel. However, Republicans are calling on Biden to refreeze the $6 billion in funds released to Tehran in a prisoner swap deal last month, as more than a dozen GOP senators say the money could be used to fund terrorism. The call to refreeze the funds also come amid speculation of links between Iran and the Hamas attack over the weekend that sparked the armed conflict between Israel and the militant group, despite the U.S. having no smoking gun, proving that Tehran played a direct role. Meanwhile, Yemeni and Iraqi militant groups who have aligned themselves with Iran have threatened to target U.S. interests with missiles and drones if the U.S. intervenes to support Israel in its conflict with Hamas in Gaza. A number of Iraqi militant groups linked with Iran have shown full support for both Hamas and Palestine, while Yemen's Houthi movement made clear its plans if the U.S. gets involved in the conflict. Meanwhile, U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken is set to visit Israel on Thursday to meet senior Israeli leaders in what Washington says will be a message of solidarity and support. U.S. State Department spokesperson Matthew Miller told reporters Tuesday that Blinken will engage with Israel directly about the situation on the ground and discuss how the U.S. can continue to best support them in their fight. Lee Seung-jae, Arirang News.
And some 190 South Korean nationals who are in Israel as the conflict escalated in the region returned home just hours ago. Of the 480 short-term visitors in Israel, 192 arrived at Incheon International Airport via a Korean air flight at around 6:10 a.m. Of the remaining short-term visitors, 27 decided to depart to Jordan by land, while 30 will depart for South Korea on Thursday via Turkish Airlines. South Korea's foreign ministry said that it's assisting in helping the remaining 230 South Korean nationals leave Israel either by land or air. Israel was taken by surprise by an attack by Hamas over the weekend. And some experts say that it is possible that South Korea may have to take a close look at this situation amid growing threats from North Korea. For more, we turn to Mark Barry this morning. It's great to have you back.
Yes, thank you for having me, and good morning.
Mark, would you say there are lessons for South Korea to take from the crisis, especially considering possible threats and provocations from the North?
You know, there are tactical lessons, but I think the most important is that much as Israel and its presence in the Levant of the Middle East, there's quite a bit of similarity to Korea's position, which is that it is bordered not only by North Korea, but bordering the peninsula is Russia and China, and across the Tsushima Straits is Japan. So any conflict, even if it starts out small with provocations that even unintentionally spiral out of control, can bring in the larger powers. In the case of Israel, the very reason that the Gerald Ford carrier group on its maiden voyage is now deployed in the Eastern Mediterranean is to prevent Hezbollah from launching its 150,000 missiles, raining them upon Tel Aviv and northern Israel and Jerusalem. And so similarly, things can spiral out of control on the Korean Peninsula, and this advises utmost caution on behalf of the present ROK government.
Right, and what the South Korean military is saying that North Korea may take the same attack pattern that Hamas did on Israel. And when the inter-Korean military agreement back in 2018 was implemented under the previous Moon Jae-in administration, they said there was no problem detecting threats from the north, and the new defense minister said yesterday that statement was wrong. Now, Mark, what's your take on this?
Well, first of all, I bemoan the new defense minister's remarks in general, which are seemingly stemming from prior remarks he made before he was confirmed, or his appointment was confirmed by President Yoon. We already know that he did not take a very positive view of the comprehensive military agreement of 2018. But nonetheless, that is an issue that needs to be discussed not only internally within the ROK military, with U.S. Forces Korea and the UN Command in general, and they can come out with a very rational assessment. However, my own opinion as a North Korea analyst is that any action to roll back the CMA of 2018 whether it's a suspension or an abrogation of the agreement, will be an excuse for North Korea to raise or ratchet up the tensions, and everyone will be sorry that occurred. Furthermore, I would also caution very respectfully to the new defense minister that his comments about lack of certain aerial surveillance by Israel over Gaza is something that did not come from any conversation that he may have had with Israeli Defense Minister Gallant, but is just a conclusion probably of his own ministry and perhaps information he received from the Israeli embassy, and it's not helpful. It's much better to be silent and to be supportive of Israel in a very difficult situation, even though the Israelis themselves recognize that they helped get themselves in this mess due to policies of the current government when it took office in January.
Sure, then let's say, well, not let's say, he is pushing, the defense minister is pushing for the suspension of the 2018 military agreement. Then why a suspension, not a termination?
Well, from the North Korean point of view, they'll be identical. So to me, it's not a matter of the particular word usage or the nuance. North Koreans don't deal, as you know, in nuance.
Right.
They're very much overt and raising the temperature as high as they can over the smallest thing. So my feeling is that, unfortunately, this, from my vantage point here in the States, is that this looks like it's an issue that's heating up that has more relevance to domestic politics, in particular legislative elections that will be held next March, and less to do with the overall disposition of forces. The most important thing actually to be said is the fortuitousness of the USS Ronald Reagan currently in exercises with Korea and Japan off the coast of Jeju, which will then dock in port on Thursday. And it was not something that was a spur-of-the-moment decision. It was just a fortuitous deployment. But to me, that's the most important thing, to reassure the ROK public and to make sure that the temperatures on the peninsula do not rise. And it's a demonstration of the fact that the United States, in collaboration with its ROK allies, can handle any contingency that may arise on the Korean peninsula.
Then can we say a possible suspension of the deal now depends on future North Korean provocations?
Yes, and there'll be more. And of course, we're expecting a satellite launch to happen this month. And it may or may not be successful. And even they'll claim it's successful when it really wasn't. So it's, in some ways, it's a propaganda war. But the most important thing is to realize that because Kim Jong-un went to Russia last month and met with Putin at the Cosmodrome and toured Air Force bases and munitions factories and so forth, this is a whole new ballgame, because it's a way of showing for North Korea to China that it's not under China's thumb. It has more room for maneuver. And frankly, Putin wants a distraction from Ukraine. He knows that there's a problem right now, and the U.S. supplying munitions to Ukraine. It was not part of the stopgap funding bill that was approved by Congress the other week. And so it's a serious issue, and he would love to see North Korea commit mischief on the peninsula. And he could very well have implied to Kim Jong-un that I'll have your back, even though he probably won't. So this is why the situation must not be clouded and obfuscated with careless remarks. And I just caution everyone to keep cool-headed and keep the alliance relationship as tight as possible, and let actions speak louder than words.
Right. Lots of diplomatic developments are expected this month and also next month. Let's see how that goes. All right, Mark, thank you so much, as always, for your insight. We appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
Here in in South Korea, free flu vaccinations for senior citizens begin today, starting with those aged 75 and up. People aged between 70 and 74 can get their shots from October 16th, and those ages 65 to 69 from October 19th. Vaccinations will be available until the end of next April. The Korea Disease Control and Prevention Agency is strongly advising seniors to get the flu and COVID-19 shots together. Free COVID-19 vaccines for those 65 and older will be available from October 19th until next March. Those who wish to get both can find the nearest designated hospital or public health care center on the KDCA website. As the use of generative AI becomes more diverse, it's bringing changes in the way we work. But concerns about ethical issues and regulatory measures are also rising. Our business correspondent Shin-Young spoke with Microsoft's Chief Communications Officer about the rapidly growing generative AI market.
As the race for the development of generative artificial intelligence intensifies, AI has been permeating people's daily lives. Microsoft, one of the leading players in AI market, has integrated its AI assistant Copilot into its products including Windows 11 and MS 365 to enhance productivity of complex and cumbersome tasks. A chief communications officer of Microsoft emphasized the importance of thinking about the meaning of the new tool.
One of the less helpful things that has happened is that all this technology, all these tools have been sort of put in this box and people have put a label on it and they said it's AI. And so people just talk about AI as a thing instead of thinking about it as a set of new tools that have come along. And so anytime there's something new, there is a natural concern, like what does this mean for me? What does it mean for my industry? What does it mean for my country? And especially if it's something as amorphous as AI.
According to market research firm Grandview Research, the global generative AI market is estimated to grow to over $109 billion by 2030 from around $10 billion in 2022. Amid the growing market, South Korea has set AI sector as one of 12 national strategic technologies to focus on and aims to sharpen its competitive edge in AI.
Yeah, I think South Korea is pretty well positioned. It's a country that has really invested in technology over the years and that has shown it's got great innovation capability. And with AI, the people that will do the best are the ones that adopt early and really drive intensity of use. South Korea is in a pretty good place for those things.
He pointed out education and healthcare sectors as promising industries where AI can be applied.
There's a challenge in that they're trying to enter in the information at the same time as they're talking to you. There's so much research that's happening with medicine right now, and now you have the idea of a co-pilot that can sit there with them and say, okay, here's some new research that you might want to think about as it applies to this specific patient.
Countries across the globe have been seeking ways to mitigate dangers of the emerging technology. Last month, leaders of U.S. tech giants including Microsoft, Google, and Meta gathered and discussed AI regulations with lawmakers in Washington.
If you think about AI as a major new platform shift with lots of new capabilities, and you understand how important technology generally is to the way people live and work today, governments absolutely should be thinking about how will it show up in their market, what are the specific harms that they want to prevent, and we're committed to working with them.
He added that Microsoft has already been contemplating principles around ethical AI use for several years and welcomes cooperation with regulators on this matter. Shin-Young, Arirang News.
Good morning, I'm Matthew Ashley, and we now turn over to stories from around the world. We begin in northeast Myanmar, where at least 29 people, including children, have been killed in an artillery attack on a refugee camp. The camp is located in a region near the Chinese border controlled by the Kachin Independence Organization, an ethnic insurgent group that has fought for independence for decades. The strike comes against the backdrop of a civil war that has continued since a military coup in 2021. KIO officials say that all victims were civilians and that the strike on late Monday night was launched by the ruling military. The exiled National Unity Government and the British Embassy have also blamed the junta. But the ruling military has denied the accusations and has blamed the deadly explosions on the rebel group's own munitions. Now, Russia has failed in its bid to rejoin the United Nations Human Rights Council. A secret ballot held on Tuesday at the UN General Assembly in New York saw Bulgaria and Albania win the 2 seats in the ballot reserved for Eastern European countries for a 3-year term. That starts on January 1st, 2024. Russia was trying to make a comeback after being booted from the Geneva-based body in April last year, following its invasion of Ukraine. Its failure to rejoin comes amid accusations that Moscow has committed widespread abuses both in Ukraine and within its own borders. Russia got 83 votes, while Bulgaria and Albania got 160 and 123 votes, respectively. Now, a 104-year-old woman from Chicago has died just a week after making a potentially record-breaking skydive. According to a close friend, Dorothy Hoffner was found dead on Monday, local time, at her senior living community. It's thought that she died in her sleep the previous evening. Hoffner's death comes days after she jumped from a plane at 13,500 feet, or 4,100 meters. This to complete a tandem skydive and possibly become the world's oldest person to do so. Her record is still awaiting certification from the Guinness World Records. The current record was set in May last year by Linnea Ingegard Larsson of Sweden, who was 103 years old at the time. And finally, another new record has been set, and this for the world's heaviest pumpkin. The record was broken on Monday at the 50th World Championship Pumpkin Weigh-Off in Half Moon Bay, California. This by a pumpkin nicknamed Michael Jordan that weighs 1,246 kilograms. It smashed the previous record best by 21 kilograms. Now, the pumpkin was grown by Minnesota-based teacher Travis Gienga, who spent around $15,000 to feed and care for it, but now is walking away with $30,000 in winnings and a custom-made ring. Gienga named the pumpkin after famous basketball player Michael Jordan, as it's the year 2023, and Jordan's jersey number was 23.
Good morning. October is a month of change, but also one of the best times of the year for fine weather in Korea. Well, today, not really much to talk about weather-wise, really, as long as you're aware of big temperature differences and morning fog. Ponghwa and Chuncheon are waking up to an almost early winter-like morning, but afternoon highs will rise fast to the 20s. Temperatures will be similar to yesterday here in the capital. If you liked yesterday's conditions, you'll like today's as well under sunny skies. Afternoon highs in most parts will be 23 to 24 degrees Celsius this afternoon with good air quality. An afternoon stroll is highly recommended today. We won't complain much about the weather for the rest of the week. Then rain in central regions and some of the west will bring a chill to the country early next week. That's Korea for you, and here's a look at the international weather conditions.
We thank you for watching New Day at Arirang. We'll be back tomorrow for Thursday's edition at the same time, 9 a.m. Korea time.